Alright everyone, I'm back as promised with my Nunk'worn deck. Give you a little quick overview. Alright, so diving in, you have the All-Star Nunk'worn. When he dies with exactly 3 counters, he comes back to life in an open space on your side of the board, which is important. Yeah, he's pretty much the heart of this deck. Moving on, he has Torrent Crit, which gives him Water 5, since all the attacks I'm doing are pretty much water-based, so he can Fluid Morph. That's very important. And it also helps, the damage average out a lot, especially with water attacks not doing that much damage. I have 2 Quads. I'm going to start with the max energy one. So, Quad has air and water, and he starts with 2 music counters. And for 1 music, he can deal 10 damage, and he can gain 10 energy. So gaining means that his energy cap would go from 60 to 70. So when you healed, you could heal up to 70 instead of your original cap of 60. He has Orb of Unda, which is put music on creature, or sacrifice, put a music on a creature, and if the creature had water, heal 10. So you can see where I'm going with this. He would sack it, gain another counter that he could use with his own ability, and also it would heal him 10. So say I've done it once already, I'm at 70, and then I took damage and then I healed 10, so I'm back at 70, and I can do that effect again, raising my health cap for a total. I could raise the health cap to 90. So I could do 30 damage to you and gain 30 energy and have you at 90 health, which is pretty nice. The second Quad is exactly the same, except for the energy. This one's average. And he also has Orb of Unda. And so you can see where this gets annoying really quick. Both my Quads, I mean, they're ready to go as is. They can fight just like that. Then in the middle row, it gets worse. I have Tengus Toborn, Overworld General. He has Defender, and on your opponent's turn, mine's not going to gain Fire 5 because I didn't use Underworlders in this build. But he will gain Disarm, and he will gain Elemental Proof. So, on average, your opponent's monster is going to have 2 elements. So he'll gain 10. So he'll be at 75 health. I have Disarm, so their battle gears are relevant. And guess what? He has Zerium armor. So if you're fighting their Zerium armor, well, theirs isn't going to work and yours is. So they're going to have to spend resources to try and get rid of yours if they can. Battle gear destruction is usually Underworld. And then on the side of him, I have Ivina, Overworld Lieutenant. I gave her Orcus Unden so she can gain water because she doesn't have it and it's necessary. For 1 music counter, she heals 5 per tribe. I'm using 4 tribes in this version, so she'll heal 20 for 1 counter. Then in the back, I have Naina, which her ability allows her to move music counters around once per turn. So I could take a counter from Nunk'worn once he's gained 1 and give it to Ivina, or I could take it from Ivina or Naina and give it to Quad. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. And I gave her Bimower Cycle, because you have to have Bimower, especially these days. So Bimower so I can try and jump in their back row. And so you can see where this deck gets annoying really quick. Depending on the matchup, you would chain Naina to the location, and I mean, you would just pick and choose, are you going to go in with Quad? Okay, give Naina's counter to Quad maybe. So now he starts with 3, and he has Orb. So that means he's going to have 4 counters. Okay, you see how gross that gets? So he can do 40 damage and gain 40 energy. And that's just him alone. Then you have your other Quad over here who can help him out with an additional 20. So I mean, you can snipe for 20 more damage. Nunk'worm's going to go in. If Nunk'worm fights, Quads can support him for a total of 40 snipe damage. And I mean, it's just very strong. It's very diverse. If you decide like, oh, I'm gonna fight with Nunk'worm, you can give Naina's counter to Ivina. So now she can heal 40. So Nunk'worm can go in, and you can go in knowing that you can do 40 damage with both Quads and heal 40 with Ivina. So I mean, it's very strong. You combine it with the effects of your locations. One of my favorites, Quarters of the Quartet. While a player controls exactly 4 tribes, that player's creatures gain untargetable by opponents. I mean, how strong is that? So you can't target anybody on my side. I have all these abilities. I can quad snipe you. I can heal 20 per. I mean, it just gets gross. And then you have Riverlands because I love putting distance between me and my opponent. So if I do water damage, I'll heal 5. See how strong that is? So I do 15 and then heal 5. And then you say you do 20 damage, and the next turn I do another 15 and I heal 5. So I just took away 5 of your damage again. And then I can heal with Ivina. If Umquad's fighting, he can heal himself and do damage. I mean, it stacks. It can get away from your opponent really quick if they don't try and get things under control. Especially when you're considering that it's not just Naina moving your counters around. You're also using attacks like Inner Flood, which is why I gave Nunk'worn Water 5. So if Nunk'worm does Inner Flood, he hits for 5, he will gain a counter and you can move a counter. And so of course you give his counter to the most useful thing, the most applicable thing for the situation you're in. Do I give the counter to Ivina so I can heal again another 20? Or do I give it to Umquad so I can do an extra 10? It's all up to you. It really is. You can give that counter to whoever you want as long as it benefits the outcome of the fight that you're in. And so that's why I went with this build. It's overall strong. It's solid. It's very solid. Use Nunk'worm to cast Unheard Melody to keep his musics under control. And I mean, look at that. For 6, you're blowing somebody up. Tell me this deck isn't solid. You got Umquads that could potentially blow up one of your opponent's supports right in the beginning of the game. You got Nunk'worm, who's the infinite engine pretty much for this entire deck. Nunk'worm's giving music counters out like Oprah. I mean, he's giving them to Ivina. He's giving them to Umquads. They're gonna get used. Nunk'worm casts all the musics, which will keep him at 3. You tech in your Cadence Clash, your Harmonics. I have Opus in there, so I could heal another 20 with musics. You know what I mean? So Nunk'worm is stalling, and then the longer he stalls, the worse this gets, because I've stacked Umquad up to like 6, and that's just one of them, and the other one would have 2. So now I can snipe for 80 damage. I mean, this deck gets out of hand really quick, and it gets stronger. I think it gets stronger every turn, definitely, because by then you've played an Inner Flood or 2, you've Naina twice, you've moved Nunk'worm's counters around, and if you're a smart player and you're big brain, you're doing well. You're running things like Storm Tunnel for that Water 5, Everrain for that Water 5, Riverlands, Quarters, Boldles. Boldles is just, it's really good, especially because you're running orbs in here. So you could either get the Orb of Unda back if you've spent it, or you can get the Bimor back if it'll do you any good. It's really up to you. And my attack deck, I'll show a little bit of that real quick. I kind of skipped to Inner Flood. Oh, another Inner Flood. Nice. Rage of Aune. Nothing special about this one. I tried to just make it balanced. I wanted to hit consistently for 20. So I think I did a good job there. For sure. And yeah, so that's the basic concept. It's just a very solid Nunk'worm deck. You're not just going to lose to anything. And I think it has the potential to wiggle itself out of a lot of bad matchups, with the exception being Fluid Morpher's Foe. I don't use decks with Fluid Morphers unless they have a way to deal with Nazarin Fluid Morpher's Foe, because I hate that matchup. It takes forever. Nazarin Fluid Morphs every time you do, and he could heal 5 per every one of his counters, so it just makes... I'm trying to stall, and he's trying to stall, and it's not a good time. It's not a fun time, it's not a good time. So, when I made this Nunk'worm deck, I made it with Nazarin's ass in mind. That's why I put 2 quads. So I could snipe him right in the very beginning of the game and I don't have to worry about him. Because he's one of the cards I like the least. Him and Hoon Palpatine. I mean, she's just... you put them both in an overworld deck, talk about overpowered right off the bat. Hoon and Najrin is almost unstoppable. And that's definitely the counter to this deck. If they're running Hoon or they're running Najrin Fluid Morpher's Foe, and you can't snipe it and you can't deal with it in the beginning, good luck, because he's gonna make your life hell. Like all decks, this deck has weaknesses. I'm not gonna go over every single one because it's chaotic. You know, it literally takes one little thing to tip the scale and make a deck bad or good or worse or better or whatever. I mean, your army is as strong as your weakest battle gear. Put it that way. So keep that in mind. What I like about this deck as well is minimal supports, mostly hybrids. So Naina being the weakest link, Naina and Nunk'worn being the weakest link. And you're like, Nunk'worn, how's he the weakest link? He's overpowered. Because if they deal with Nunk'worn before he's at the 3 counters, say they sniped him like in the very beginning of the game, it hurts you tremendously. It won't win them the game, but it hurts you tremendously. And it makes them a lot easier for them to win because you don't have an engine anymore. So now Naina's just kind of taking and grabbing from people to give to other people. You know, you're not generating like free counters anymore. So it'll slow you down. So a smart player would blow up the Nunk'worm before they blew up Naina. Naina being less important. You know, a bad player would snipe Naina and you would still have Nunk'worm, you know, building counters and casting things like Unheard and potentially swapping his counters around with Inner Flood still. So yeah, a smart player would blow up the Nunk'worm for sure. But very solid deck, very hard to poke holes in it because my turn Nunk'worm or Unquad fights most likely, and then on your turn I'm defending with Tengus. You know, so it's very hard for it's not an easy match. They're gonna have to break themselves, and the pressure's on. Believe me, when your opponent sees this lineup, and he starts reading cards, he starts like, oh, hold on, can I see that? Can I see that? Can I see that? It becomes very overwhelming for your opponent mentally. You know, you got to consider everything. You know, your opponent mentally when he's looking at all these effects and he's starting to see the Nunk'worm gain counters and you're starting to make things happen, or like you don't even give him time to think, right? That's the best. When you don't give them like the full time to process, and so you right away initiate a burst, and Quad blows up a support character right off bat, and they're just like trying to figure out where to go from there, and they still don't even know what all your cards do. That's the best. Pressure. Pressure is good, period. Whether it's mental. Well, I'll say mental. Mental for chaotic, right? I don't want to. I don't want to say like beat your opponent up. But yeah, if you beat your opponent up mentally, believe me, it just makes things. It just makes winning against them so much easier. So when your opponent's looking at this and they're already overwhelmed because they're like, ugh, I'm gonna have to fight Tengus. Ugh, his own quads can blow me up. Ugh, crap, his Ivenus can heal. So then you're in their head. They're like, do I want to use my best attacks on this fight because he'll heal? Do I want to try and force him to heal? But then he can snipe me, you know? So that's why I built it like this. This version, I think, puts the most pressure on your opponent, and it's solid. 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 Like everything, it's not bulletproof, and it's not going to 100% win, but I think it's very solid. And potentially, like I said, could make bad matchups work. in the right hands of the right player. But this deck is solid, and I'm very proud of it. And I think it's going to work for a lot of you guys. And I definitely expect to see this net decked when Chaotic starts throwing tournaments again, because this version here is very solid. I had built a 5 tribe, but I found that if you just take the weakest element out, which I felt was Underworld, I took out the Underworld and I just threw another bug in, and it was just better. It was just better. Own Quad's way better than Navina. Navina does 20 damage or 25 damage for 2 counters, and Own Quad will do 20. You know, so it's a loss of 5, but Own Quad's better. He could fight. Navina doesn't have water. And you're never going to have it be just Ivina, Navina. Like, everybody's like, oh, you could get that, you know, Defender 20 energy. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. Almost never going to happen. A good player and a good opponent, if he was even bothered by that, by the way, because that's not even that strong, if a good player was even bothered by that combo, he would just snipe your Navina, or he would snipe your Ivina. I mean, it just, it's not always gonna. So anyways, I felt Underworld was the weakest link in the multi-tribe deck, so I took it out. And went with double bug. And I'm liking it way more. I think it's way more bursty. This deck could play any way you want. It could play slow, it could play fast. That's what I like. I'm a responsive player. I like to respond. I don't really like to initiate bursts. So you'll never catch me playing things like snipe, cuz you know, I don't like going in without knowing like what they're doing. I don't like going cannon of casualties and not knowing that they have negation. So I'm a responsive player. So this deck right here is great. It's great for the responsive player, for the come to me player. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, this deck still goes for them, but they definitely have to initiate bursts, and you just get to respond all day long. Oh, you hurt me really bad? Heal. Oh, within range to kill you? Top it off and hit you for that last 10. I mean, oh, it's your turn? Well, now you gotta go in Zerium Armor. Can you kill this Tangoth while he's being supported by Ivina and Umquads? I mean, so the pressure. Mental pressure, the pressure's on. So this kind of deck really wears your opponent out. And I mean, if you beat them, believe me, they're probably going to lose their next match too, because this deck's going to take a lot out of anybody. But that's enough on this for now. I didn't want to make this video that long. But you guys get the basics, you know, and your attack deck should just be water. Water-based, you know. Especially because we got to have your primal. You know, because the MVP is Nunk'worn and the element's water, so take care of your water and take care of your Nunk'worn and you'll do fine. Alright guys, that about wraps this video up. I hope you enjoy, and I hope you use this deck.